Hello, welcome to the Daily News Ukraine channel. Today is February 6th and our daily review of news about Ukraine. The Russian invasion forces have set up in the northern part of occupied Crimea a base with a fortified perimeter. This was announced on Twitter by OSINT analyst Brady Frick, Ukrinform reports. Russian forces built a base in northern Crimea toward the end of 2022. Satellite imagery shows that it has a heliport and fortified perimeter, the tweet reads, showing the images of what is said to be the Russian base in question. Read also, Ukrainian troops crossing into Crimea not to trigger nuclear strike Budanov as reported. The occupiers began digging trenches and installing concrete barriers around the Belbek airfield outside the Black Sea Fleet home base of Sebastopol in occupied Crimea. Russian special services, through the pro-Russian Hungarian Peace Circle, are preparing an information provocation in Budapest on February 6 against the further strengthening of sanctions pressure on the Russian Federation. This is reported by Slovakia's Infodens, according to Ukrinform. The rally will be held by the pro-Russian Hungarian organization Hungarian Peace Circle within the framework of the Hungarian Peace Forum movement on February 6 at 1400 hours under the slogan No to War. No to inflation. Peace with Russia. Stop war, follows from the announcement, which the organization posted on its Facebook page. The protest is directed against further strengthening of sanctions pressure on Russia. It is assumed that Russian intelligence operatives operating at the Russian embassy in Hungary may be behind the rally, as was the case in similar events held previously. According to Infodens, the key organizer of the protest is the Hungarian Workers' Party, led by Hungarian communist politician Gyula Thurmer. Read also, think tank exposes Russia's malign operations to hinder Sweden's NATO accession. The head of the Hungarian Peace Circle organization is Endre Simo, who is believed to be affiliated with the Russian Special Services. Simo on January 28 of this year has already organized a smaller anti-Ukrainian rally outside the Ukrainian embassy in Budapest, which was supervised by Russian special service operatives with the Russian embassy in Hungary, with whom Simo is in contact. The event, however, was a failure, having attained none of its goals, Infodens reported earlier. The publication also recalls that after Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Hungarian Peace Circle organized a rally outside the Polish embassy in Hungary demanding that Poland and Hungary withdraw from NATO. The Verkhovna Rada, Ukraine's parliament, will not consider staff replacements in the defense sector this week. David Arakhamia, head of the Servant of the People parliamentary faction, said this in a Telegram post, Ukrinform reports. There will be no staff replacements in the defense sector this week, he wrote. As reported by Ukrinform, David Arakhamia earlier said that Chief of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine Kirill Budanov would head the Ministry of Defense, while current Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov would be transferred to the position of Minister for Strategic Industries. In addition, Acting Minister of Internal Affairs Ihor Klimenko and Acting Security Service Chief Vasil Maliuk will be appointed to permanent positions. Read also, Arakhamia says Budanov will replace Reznikov as Defense Minister. However, Minister of Defense Alexei Reznikov stated President Volodymyr Zelensky had not spoken to him about his possible appointment as Minister for Strategic Industries, noting if he had received such an offer, he would have refused. Russian forces launched missile and artillery strikes on Donetsk region on February 5. There were no casualties in the Donetsk direction, but there were damages. The Kurakhove community was shelled with missiles, 7 houses were damaged in Hernik, and a house and a shop were damaged in Kurakhove. Kurakhove came under artillery shelling, a house was damaged, the Donetsk Regional Military Administration wrote on Telegram. It is noted that a house in Krasnohorivka of the Mariinka community was struck. In the morning, Avdiivka came under massive artillery shelling. 1 person was killed in the Horlivka direction, another one was injured in Bakhmut. A residential building was damaged in Druzhba of the Toretsk community. In the Lysychansk direction, explosions were heard in Siversk and Serebryanka of the Siversk community, as well as in Torsky and Zarykne of the Lyman community. There were no casualties. As reported, Russian force killed 4 civilians and injured 11 more in Donetsk region on February 4. Photo, Donetsk RMAI. As a result of Russia's full-scale armed aggression, 461 children were killed and 919 more were injured in Ukraine. As of the morning of February 6, 2023, more than 1,380 children were affected in Ukraine as a result of the full-scale armed aggression of the Russian Federation. According to the official information provided by juvenile prosecutors, 461 children were killed and more than 919 received injuries of various degrees of severity, the Ukrainian Prosecutor General's office wrote on Telegram. It is noted that these figures are not final, as work is underway in the areas of active hostilities, in the temporarily occupied and liberated territories. Read also, more than 16,220 children deported from Ukraine. Most children were affected in Donetsk region 443, Kharkiv region 270, Kyiv region 123, Kherson region 86, Zaporizhia region 84, Mykolaiv region 83, Chernihiv region 68, Luhansk region 66, and Dnipropetrovsk region 63. It was established that on February 2, as a result of Russian artillery shelling, a car caught fire in the city of Ola Pristan, Kherson region. There were 3 people in the car, including an 8-year-old boy. The child died. In addition, regular airstrikes and shelling of civilian infrastructure and residential areas by the Russian armed forces damaged 3,126 educational institutions, of which 337 were completely destroyed. As Ukrinform reported, the National Police of Ukraine has received 9,631 reports of 9,764 missing children since February 24, 2022. Russian force shelled a church in the city of Kherson today, February 6. On February 6, the Russian army shelled one of the churches in Kherson, the Kherson City Council reported. It is noted that there were no casualties. The church's windows were broken and doors were damaged. Read also, Russian troops launched 3 artillery strikes on water area of Mykolaiv region's Arakhamia community. The city council added that on February 5, around midnight, the enemy shelled 3 neighborhoods of Kherson and the village of Zelensky. Private houses and a gas pipeline were damaged. 1 person was injured. As reported by Ukrinform, on February 5, Russian troops launched 37 strikes on settlements in Kherson region. The city of Kherson was hit 7 times. Enemy shells damaged an educational institution and residential buildings. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his condolences to President of Turkey Recep Tayyip Erdogan and the Turkish people over an earthquake that struck in southeastern Turkey. I express my sincere condolences to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish people and the families of those killed in the earthquake in southeastern Turkey. I wish a speedy recovery to all those injured. In this difficult time, we will be close to the Turkish people, Zelensky posted on Twitter. Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs Dmytro Kuleba said in a tweet that Ukraine is ready to provide any necessary support to overcome the consequences of today's earthquake. We are deeply saddened by the loss of life and damage caused by today's tragic earthquake in Turkey. Our heart goes out to the families of the victims and we wish a speedy recovery to the injured. Ukraine stands ready to provide any necessary support, Kuleba wrote. As reported, more than 300 people were killed and many buildings were destroyed as a powerful earthquake hit in southeastern Turkey, near the Syrian border on Monday morning. The 7.8 magnitude earthquake's epicenter was in Gaziantep province in southern Turkey, but aftershocks were felt in several countries across the region, including Syria and Lebanon. Photo, AAI. More than 16,220 children are considered to have been deported from Ukraine since the Russian full-scale invasion began. The press service of the Ombudsman's office said this in a Facebook post, Ukrinform reports. According to data from the Children of War State portal as of February 6, 2023, 350 children are considered as missing, 16,222 deported, 9,510 found, the report says. Read also, Children's Hospital used by Russian occupiers for military purposes in Zaporizhia region as reported by Ukrinform. As of January 2, 2023, 16,011 children were considered to have been deported from Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale war. Photo, AAI. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky has submitted to the Verkhovna Rada 2 draft laws on the approval of his decrees to extend the terms of martial law and general mobilization in the country. The relevant documents are registered under numbers 8419 and 8420, Ukrinform reports. Thus, according to explanatory notes to the documents, the head of state proposes extending the terms of martial law and general mobilization from February 19, 2023, for another 90 days. Read also, War Update, Ukraine Army repels enemy attacks near 14 settlements, including Bakhmut on February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On the same day, martial law was imposed in the country and general mobilization was announced until March 26, 2022. Subsequently, the terms of martial law and general mobilization were extended by the Ukrainian parliament until April 25, 2022, May 25, 2022, August 23, 2022, November 21, 2022, and February 19, 2023. Over the past 24 hours, Russian troops have launched 37 strikes on settlements in Kherson region. Russian occupiers opened fire 37 times on peaceful settlements in Kherson region. They used artillery, MLRS, mortars, and tanks, the Kherson Regional Military Administration said in a telegram post. The Russian army struck Kherson 7 times. Enemy shells damaged an educational institution and residential buildings. Read also, Russian troops launched 3 artillery strikes on water area of Mykolaiv region's Arakhamia community as a result of yesterday's shelling. 4 people suffered injuries of varying degrees of severity in the region. As reported by Ukrinform, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, the enemy launched 4 missile strikes on the civilian infrastructure of Kharkiv and Donetsk regions, and carried out 56 attacks using MLRS, in particular, on civilian objects in Kherson. Today we were talking about those news. In Crimea, Russians build base with fortified perimeter satellite imagery. Russian intelligence behind Budapest provocation plan, Slovak media. Parliament will not consider staff replacements in defense sector this week, Arakhamia. Kurakhove, Avdiivka, Krasnohorivka, Russians shell Donetsk region with missiles and artillery. Russian aggression kills 461 children in Ukraine. Church damaged as invaders shell Kherson. Ukraine ready to provide any support to earthquake-stricken Turkey. More than 16,220 children deported from Ukraine. Zelensky proposes extending martial law and general mobilization. Russians shell Kherson region 37 times over past day, 4 people injured.